It's just the movement of the earth. And how it relates to the sun. See, that's what I'm talking about right there. And how it relates to the sun. That's it. There's nothing special about it. It's nothing religious or spiritual that the Most High has told us to look out for. Now, you look in the book of Enoch, it's going to say something different. Jubilee, Chakma, with Chakma. So the crescent moon worship is idolatry. It's not of the Most High. It's idolatry. And if you read the scriptures and you look in the Hebrew and you believe what you read in the Hebrew and you read the Psalms and you read Psalms chapter 81 and you read verses 3 and 4, you'll see that the new moon is black. Believe the dictionary and what this word means. Believe the character. Believe the first letter means kap, which means your palm of your hand, which means cover. Believe that. You don't believe me. Believe what you read in the Hebrew with your own eyes and believe the meaning of the letters that spell out the word kasa'ah. Okay? So now, the Most High, this is a good point. We are the final golah. What is the golah? We are the final dispersing us. Those who have been despised. Those that grew up listening and looking at people worship statues, bowing down in Hinduism and Catholicism, speaking in tongues in the apostolic Pentecostal holiness churches, being baptized. Why do I say that? Because Yahweh said, you are going to be scattered. And when you're scattered, you're going to serve other gods. Did he say you're going to keep a tight and compact rabbinical history wherever you go? No. Read that again, Amaya. Read verse 27 again, please. Listen what the man reads. Go ahead.
And Yahweh shall scatter you.
Yahweh will scatter you. That's verse 27, right?
Come.
Okay, Yahweh will scatter you, which is kapayats or kapats. All right? Like wa hapayats. Okay, go ahead.
Among the nations.
Among all people. It says ba'imyam, among the people. So Yahweh will scatter us among the people. Ha'imyam. He's going to scatter us among the peoples. All right? He's going to scatter us among the people. All right? So we're going to be scattered throughout the different nations. As we see Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 1 and 2. We see the same thing being said again. So if anybody to come and say, well, Deuteronomy is true, but the chapter in chapter 14, when it says you can eat meat, that's not true. Well, you're dealing with Hashatan, man. Hashatan is your father. If you're going to say that any part of Devarim, Deuteronomy, is not true. So it says, Yahweh will scatter you among all people. Go ahead.
And he shall be left few in number.
Weren't we decimated? Wasn't our population diminished? Weren't the slaves jumping off of the ship? And the number of slaves that got on the ship and the amount that made the passage and survived past the first generation was less than half. Less than half of those slaves survived. Is there a statistic on that? I don't know. But do we know people jumping off of ships? They didn't want to go into captivity, dying on a passage. You said 5 people on a boat. Boy, see, that's what I'm talking about, man. You said 5 people on a boat for 2 months, over 2 months, naked, with no place to go no place to go number 2 and number 1. And you keep them chained up. And you see how many survive. They did to us. This is what they did to us. That's how Yahweh scattered us. So you think that slavery was just a historical inconvenience? No. Slavery and the conquest of the Americas was the hand of Yahweh upon the children of Israel for their wickedness and their idolatry, following other gods, not keeping Shabbat, not keeping Pesach. indulging in homosexuality, having sex with other men's wives, of the prophecies against Bnei Yisrael, Banya Yashar, the children of Israel, letter for letter. The conquest of the new world is exactly as the prophecy said. I'm going to take away your sheep. I'm going to take away your cattle. I'm going to take away your kind. The stranger within you shall get up above you very high, and you shall come down very low. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. But oh, that happened so and so days. That happened so many years ago. This thing happened, Parashah. You don't know what you're talking about, man. This thing, as they say, this thing been happened, man. This thing been happened to the children of Israel. This thing happened so long ago. Okay, but where's he reading now? He's in verse 27 now, right? He's in verse 27. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to go to verse 30, please. This prophecy was fulfilled in the year 119 BC. The children of Israel, this is the thing that already happened. This Cushi doesn't know what he's talking about. This Cushi is wrong. Read verse 30, Maria. Let's see when Yahweh say that these things are going to happen. And then you tell me that we are not the dispersed of the children of Israel, trying to make our way back to Torah, trying to make our way back to Torah. Read verse 30.
When thou art in tribulation.
When thou art in tribulation, I want you to read this loud and strong. I want the people at Elohim across the street, all of the scattering, worshiping the other gods, which we're still doing to this day. Read.
Even in the latter days.
In the what?
In the latter days.
In the first century.
In the latter days.
In the latter days. Which means what? Which means these things are still happening to the children of Israel. In the latter days, did you hear that for yourself? So it says it's going to happen in the latter days, which means the children of Israel are going to be worshiping idols until the latter days. So we, those in North, Central, South America, and the Caribbean, primarily, we are the last Golah.
Turn to Yahweh thy Elohim.
And we turn to him, it says what? It says, the end of the days, it says, Shabbat. Which means what? We got to return to make what? Teshuvah. Make repentance to him. How can we make repentance to him if we already got the right thing, we walking in the right way? So almost every community that call themselves Jews are not walking in Torah. They're walking in opinions. They're walking in commentary. They're walking in midrash. They're walking in traditions of men. Exactly as Rabbeinu Yahushua HaMashiach, our Rabbi Yahushua and our Messiah told us they were going to do. Forsake the commandments of Yahweh that they may keep their own traditions. And that's exactly what happened. And that's what people are caught up in today. They're not caught up in Torah. Now some of these books that we have are good for reference and to iron out differences. Okay? But now, it says in the latter days. Right, that's all I wanted from that. So now, it says the Achariyat Yamayam. Ha Yamayam. The last days. So now, these other people, guess what? We don't exist to them. We don't have they act like we don't exist. We have to try to prove ourselves to you when we just, our mere effort. Because we're trying to go from idolatry to what? To Torah. Repentance. That shows you that we who came into the Western Hemisphere on the slave ships, we who were raped, robbed, and murdered, and had our lands conquered in the Western Hemisphere, we that were following idolatry in the Western Hemisphere, and are now waking up saying we are the Banya Yashala. We are the Bnei Yisrael. We are the children of Israel. And we reject the idolatry that was taught to us. But we would not reject our Messiah. We would not reject our chief rabbi, Yahushua HaMashiach. Because while all these other rabbis are giving dissertations and passing down their lineages to their sons, ours was laying down his life for us. Ours were coming against the established governmental structure of ancient Israel, while the other ones are trying to build up the ancient governmental structures outside of the Torah, outside of the Chumash, not within it. See, we can do what we do within it. We don't have to make up prayers. Our prayers come from Psalms, Ezekiel, Isaiah. I'm not saying that there are other, not saying that every prayer is made up. You see? That we are the lost Shevatim, that we are the lost Shabbat, rejecting Gentile Christianity. We are rejecting Gentile Judaism, Buddhism. All the isms, part of it isn't good for you. That's your discretion. But us believing with the guy, Menachem Mendelssohn, right? Are we wrong for believing in Yahushua Mashiach? I guess the whole Kabbalah is wrong for believing in Menachem, right?
Yeah, kind.
Good old Menachem.
Pictures everywhere.
But it's okay to believe in him. I guess the first century, our people were wrong for believing in Bar Kokhba, right? During the Bar Kokhba rebellion, right? They were wrong then, right? But no, we believe in Yahushua Mashiach. And it doesn't violate anything in the Torah. We don't say he is the creator. We say he is the son of God Almighty. But Daniel saw somebody in the fire that was like the son of God Almighty. So we assign this identity to someone that historically came and taught our people about mercy, about compassion, about sacrifice, okay? About perseverance. How are we wrong? We're not. So don't be intimidated by people that, oh, you don't believe, you're not Israel, you believe in the Messiah. No, we are Israel, and that shows that we are Israel. Because we reject what you're saying, and we look at what Torah says. And we go by Torah, and we know what the prophecies say. And you have nobody that fulfills these prophecies. Okay? And it was our understanding about Israel and Hamashiach that allowed us to survive the ordeal of slavery in our subconscious. So we're not going to reject that. We embrace the Bible and all that it contains. So the mere fact that we are looking for Torah, that we are fulfilling what Deuteronomy chapter, 5, right? No, chapter 4, verse 27 through verse 30 says, that shows that we are the lost tribes. We've been scattered, and we served other gods, and our people are still doing it to this day. Still serving other gods. Okay? You finished 40, right? Okay. Let's go to, I'm going to try to keep the commentary shorter. Let's have you do 41 through 49. Let's have you go ahead and do that.
What third portion?
Let's do number 3.
Then Mashal severed 3 cities on this side of Jordan toward the sun rising, that the slayer might flee thither, which should have killed his neighbor unawares, and hated him not in times past, that the fleeing unto one of these cities he might live, namely Gezer in the wilderness, in the plain country of the Reubenites, and Ramoth in Gilead of the Gadites, and Golan in Bashan of the Manassites. And this is the law which Moshe set before the children of Yasha'an. These are the testimonies and the statutes and the judgments which Moshe spake unto the children of Yasha'an after they came forth out of Egypt. On this side Jordan, in the valley over against the north out of Egypt. And they possessed his land, and the land of Og, king of Bashan, 2 kings of the Amorites, which were on this side Jordan toward the sun rising, from Ararat, which is by the bank of the river Arnon, even unto Mount Sion, which is Hermon, and all the plain on this side Jordan eastward, even unto the sea of the plain, unto the springs of Pisgah, Kalshvad Bar Hawa,
Kalashra Bari Hawa,
Shalman Shemai,
Na'ashavan Nashemai.
all said,
All that Yahweh said,
what we doing here?
what we doing here. Mash. It says Mazaraka Shemash. Mazaraka Shemash. Mazaraka Shemash. So Mazaraka Shemash. The rising, the east rising of the sun. Okay. So we got the 3 cities of refuge. And the cities of refuge was set up so that if you killed somebody on accident until the priest, the high priest passed away. And once he passed away, then you could leave the city. But if you left the city before the high priest passed away, they could kill you. The avenger of blood could kill you because you murdered or killed accidentally somebody in another person's family. And that family could have somebody or hire somebody like a bounty hunter to go look for you and kill you when they found you. But if the high priest died and you left the city, they couldn't touch you. Then it would be murder. But if the high priest hadn't died and you left the city, there was no punishing the person that killed you because you killed somebody. So the Most High said, if you want to avoid getting killed yourself and you kill the person on accident, then you got to stay inside these walls until the high priest dies. So we had those 3 cities on the east of Jordan. And if we look at today, historically, who were the people that received, a lot of our people was the tribe of Gad, received slaves. Now, the Gadites, North American Indians, they did have people from the tribe of Judah, AKA Black Americans. At the time, they weren't Black Americans. They were just called by other names, but they had them as slaves also. But it was more of a biblical system of slavery where you worked with the family. It wasn't oppressive like the so-called white man did. All cultures, including so that's North American Indians, tribe of Gad, which is one of the cities spoken of, one of the people spoken of in the 3 cities of refuge. Other one was Manasseh, which is Cuba. And even today, our people go down to Cuba for political asylum. The most famous being Angela Davis and Shakata Accord. All right.
Well,
and so Angela Davis, Shakata Accord.
not Angela Davis.
She didn't go down there?
No.
Shakata Accord did, right?
Yeah, Ashanti Shakur, but her name before she changed it was Joanne Chisholm.
All right, Chisholm. All right, so we have people that go down to Cuba for political asylum to get out of the way because the American government, so they got cities of refuge there. And it's a well-known fact that the tribe of Judah was flee from slavery and run down into Florida amongst the tribe of Reuben, so-called Seminole Indians, Miccosukee, and they would live amongst them. And when they lived amongst them, they were treated as brothers. They could have weapons and everything, but they were servants, they were workers. Because they came into them and said, hey, you're a foreigner, you're from the outside, you can come live among us, but you got to work. Here's a weapon, somebody try to attack, blah, 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 but don't try to do nothing silly with us. And that's the type of servitude we had amongst each other as children of Israel in Aratz Yashral, or Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel. So these 3 people did the exact same thing and performed the exact same function as we see was just read in the Torah on the eastern side of the Jordan River, right? In the eastern side, you understand? We took in the refugees. North American Indians took in slave refugees, and all of them didn't become slaves. Lachi, Hittite, they took in slaves also, runaways, all right? Israelites that were running from captivity, and Cuba. Now, we can't forget Mexico deserves an honorable mention because they took in several members of the tribe of Judah as cities of refugee cities. You see, so this biblical tradition is carried on by our people even in the West, against the most powerful government at the time on the planet Earth. Now, what government is going to do that now amongst the people that are in Africa, in China? Well, China may do it now. Is Snowden, did they kick Snowden out?
No.
He's still there?
Yeah, Russia.
Edward Snowden, what? I'm talking about Russia. Okay, so you still have these cities of refuge, but it's power to power. These were small, unpowerful people that said, we don't care what the U.S. government is saying. Refugee centers or places of refuge followed us even across the waters. And we still did it for each other. Everybody understand that? Okay. Next reader, chapter 5, verse 1 through 18.
Parashah Parashah Gadol Shalom. Yabrak Kam Yahweh Bashem Yahushai.
Yabrak Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Chapter 5, verses 1 through 18.
Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 1. And Mashah called unto all Yasha'Allah and said unto them, Hear Yasha'Allah, the statutes and the ordinances which I speak in your ears this day, that ye may learn them and observe to do them. Yahweh our Lahiah made a covenant with us in Horeb. Yahweh made not this covenant with our fathers, but with us, even us, who are all of us here alive this day. Yahweh spoke with you face to face in the mount out of the midst of the fire, and went not up into the mount, saying, I am Yahweh, thy Lahiah, who brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee a graven image, even any manner of likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Thou shalt not bow down unto them, nor serve them, for I, Yahweh thy Lahiah, am a jealous Lahiah, visiting the iniquity of the fathers of the children, and upon the third and upon the fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto the 1,000th generation of him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Observe the Shabbat to keep it holy, as Yahweh thy Lahiah commanded thee. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the 7th day is a Shabbat unto Yahweh thy Lahiah. In it thou shalt not do any manner of work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thine ox, nor thy ass, nor any of thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates, that thy manservant and thy maidservant may rest as well as thou. And thou shalt also remember that thou wast a servant in the land of Egypt, and Yahweh thy Lahiah brought thee out thence by a mighty hand and a stretched out arm. Honor thy father and thy mother, as Yahweh thy Lahiah hath commanded thee, that thy days may be long, and that it may go well with thee, upon the land which Yahweh thy Lahiah giveth thee. Thou shalt not murder, neither shalt thou commit adultery, neither shalt thou steal, neither shalt thou bear false witness against thy neighbor, neither shalt thou covet thy neighbor's wife, neither shalt thou turn aside, neither shalt thou desire thy neighbor's house, nor his field, or his manservant, or his maidservant, or his ox, or his ass, or anything that is thy neighbor's.
Okay. All right, give us a midrash on that.
Yahweh called out to Yasha'Allah, and the covenant that Yahweh made with the children of Yasha'Allah wasn't with the generation before, but the current generation of Yasha'Allah that is alive, and the ones that cause a bunch of problems. And then Mashah went he told the children of Yasha'Allah the 10 Commandments again, and told them that they would it would put their standing good with Yahweh if they kept these commandments and make their days long. They would live a long life. just told them the 10 Commandments. Not taking Yahweh's name in vain. So taking Yahweh's name in vain would be like using it for things you don't need to do or say. Just saying his name for no reason, or things that aren't necessary.
Okay.
And then, for the Shabbat, it says 6 days you're supposed to work that you're in charge of, or that's under you, should be doing any work. That's supposed to be a rest day for everyone. So even the animals aren't supposed to be. And for you're not supposed to covet anything about your neighbors. So you're not supposed to like wish something was yours or wish that they didn't have it. That belongs to somebody else. But like if you see something and you look at it and then it makes you want to get it, then like you're using what they have as motivation to get something that you want, then that's okay. You can admire it, but you can't like want it from them or take it from them. That's it.
Okay. All right, very good. So Deuteronomy, we see early on, it's a legal summary of legal responsibilities in chapter 5, verses 1 through 18. It doesn't stop there. There's more that are going to be given. As a matter of fact, the greatest commandment isn't listed in the 10 Commandments. The second greatest commandment isn't listed in the 10 Commandments. Okay? When it says he's going to punish the third and fourth generation, that's getting into the regeneration, because your spirit comes back down here. All right? 3 or 4 generations after you. If that's the will of Yahweh. If it's not his will, then it's not going to happen. But if it is his will, it can happen. It can happen. And that punishment is going to come upon you when you come back down here. So you're not going to escape your judgment. All right? When we see in verse 14, when it talks about the coveting, within your gates, anything with this that's within your gates. Is that verse 14? Yeah. Anything that's within your gates. All right? Not coveting, but your donkey, your horse, everything. Nothing can work. Everything got to rest on that day. What does that show us? That shows us that we're supposed to, the gates represent structure, represents a boundary. It represents a protected community. We cannot have gates if we're scattered into 4 different places. Implement. It's a community. Because you can't control what happens anywhere unless it's where? In your community, right? So that's what we have done, like colonias. They have colonias all throughout Mexico. And in the colonia, this is the rule. This is when you agree to move into this colonia. They used to have this back in the day called covenant communities, where most of them were set up so that Latinos and Native Americans and blacks couldn't move into these communities. All right? So we have to understand that we need communities. Physical communities with gates. And whatever happens inside that community is according to the Torah.
Community rules.
You see? And then we need that more than ever now. But Israel seems to be, our people seem to be televangelist now. I'm gonna just broadcast me teaching over here. And then you go back to what you were doing. We're not gonna live in a community. But we have to live in a community. Okay? So, and Yahweh said that you would get long life for being obedient to these commands, right? But that long life doesn't stop here on this earth. That's what I'm talking about, see? That long life doesn't stop here. There's a continuation of what happens here in the next life that's coming. And how you live this life is going to determine what happens to you in the life that's coming. Okay? So now, taking his name in vain is misrepresenting him also. You call yourself an Israelite, Yasha Allah, you saying you serve Yahweh, but then you're taking his name in vain. You're making his name to be nothing. You're not respecting it. Some people call themselves Jews. They have businesses, and on the Shabbat, they have Israelites, who they call Gentiles, working their businesses, doing things that aren't necessary. I can see if you're a doctor or EMT, all right,
Nurse.
or a nurse or a midwife, but I'm talking about pawn shops. I'm talking about car washes. I'm talking about groceries. So you have to make sure, that's why the scripture is what? Anything, well, he said anything that's what? He said anything that's under your control. So if this employee is under your control, that employee is not supposed to be working on Shabbat. Whether it's in your gates or out of your gates. And if it's in your gates, then definitely not, because that person is supposed to be abiding by the rules and the laws of Yahshua Allah in that particular area. In that particular area. You understand? So that's where we are right now. All right? That's where we are right now. Let's go to the 3. 600 and was 6-3. No, just go ahead. We know. Oh, you didn't get yours at the beginning. Let's give it to him now. Yabarakaka Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shi HaMashiach Zayatan Ban Parazah Ban God. Okay. 6-3. Now also remember he read, honor your father and your mother, Chabad Abayaka wa At Amaka. Honor and respect your mother and your father. No matter if they're the best person on the earth, or if you don't really have too much like for them. You're supposed to honor. Listen to what they say. Obey them. If they're right, obey what they say. If you're at your father's house, and your father's 75, and you're up there looking at the TV, and your father says, hey man, why don't you turn that TV off? Go to bed or read something, man. You can't, I can't say, man, I'm 48 years old, man. How you gonna tell me I can't be looking at, I'm gonna cut the TV off. I'm gonna pick up a book or I'm gonna go to bed. I'm gonna respect and honor my father no matter what age I am. I'm gonna obey him no matter what age I am. Now, if it's a matter of right and wrong, then we're gonna have a discussion about it. But if he's telling me to do something that's not wrong, and I'm 48 years old, I'm gonna obey and honor my father. Everybody understand that? There's no limit on that. And you also, if you're being raised and shown that this is the way that Yahweh wants you to live your life and walk in righteousness, then no matter how old you get, see, people think they get a certain age, I don't gotta obey my parents anymore. I ain't gotta obey my father. He's telling me to do something that's already written in the Torah. But I don't wanna do that no more. You're not rebelling against your parent, fool, idiot. You're rebelling against your maker. Your parents just giving you the echo of what Mashal has already said that he heard from Moses. Don't eat pig. You can't tell me not to eat pig, man. I'm 19 now. I can eat pig all I want to. Oink, oink, oink city for me. Use pig, everything, man. I'm 19 now. You can't tell me what to do. Well, you're not going against your parent. You're going against Moses, and you're going against Yahweh. The parent is just a voice of reasoning to tell you what the Most I've already said. Somebody you can physically see on this earth. But if you go against that, you're not going against your parent only. Your parent got the rule from the Most High, Yahweh. So that's who you being defiant to. And like we said, if you sow death on this earth, if you operate in death, what are you going to get when you resurrect? Does anybody not understand that concept? Is there anybody in here that wants to die a physical death and then wake up after they die and then die again in a spiritual death that you can feel? Who wants to experience that? Raise your hand. Who wants to die and resurrect to glory, to righteousness, to everlasting life, to power, to authority, to space flight, the depths of the oceans, going to the center of the sun, being invincible in an eternal power, eternal life, serving and obeying Yahweh? Who wants that? Raise your hand. You ain't gonna get it if you violate what the Most High said. If you're not, see, this is one thing. If you dishonor your mother and father, that's a deal breaker. Do my commandments, he shall what? Live. Which means if you don't do them, you will what? You will die. So you want to live or you want to die? Well, there's no penalty. There's no penalty. There's no penalty for breaking this commandment. It doesn't say what's going to happen. It does say. It says you're going to die, right? You think because it doesn't tell you, hey, if you shave your beard, this is the punishment. Any violation of the Torah, the Torah, will bring death. Period. Direct to death. Plain and simple. Okay. Okay?
These words Yahweh spoke unto your assembly.
Hey, get the mic and put it to your mouth, man, because we can hardly hear you. All right, go ahead. Put it to your mouth, and what verse you in?
19.
All right, go ahead.
Unto all your assembly.
There you go.
In the mount of the midst of the fire, of the cloud, and of the thick darkness, with a great voice, and it went up on no more, and he wrote them upon 2 tables of stone, and gave us. Ye came near me, even all the heads of your tribes and your elders, and ye said, Behold, Yahweh our Lahaya hath shown us his glory and his greatness, and we have heard his voice out of the midst of the fire. We have seen this day that Adonai doth speak with man, and he liveth. Now therefore, why should we die? For this great fire will consume us, and we will hear the voice of Yahweh our Lahaya any more than we shall die. For who is there of all flesh that hath heard the voice of the living Adonai speak out of the midst of the fire as we have lived? Go out near and hear all that Yahweh Adonai may say, and thou shalt speak unto us all that Yahweh Adonai may speak unto thee, and we will hear it and do it. And Yahweh heard the voice of your words when ye spoke unto me. And Yahweh said unto me, I have heard the voice of the words of this people which they have spoken unto thee, they have well said all that they have spoken. Oh, that they had such a heart. This is all way to fear me and keep all my commandments, that it might be well with them and with their children forever. Go say to them, return ye to your tents, but as for thee, stand you here by me, and I will, which thou shalt teach them, that they may do them to the land which I give to them to possess it. Ye shall observe to do therefore as Yahweh your Elohim hath commanded you. Ye shall not turn aside to the right hand or the left. Ye shall walk in the way which Yahweh your Elohim commanded you, and may live, and that it may be well with you, that that ye may prolong your days in the land which ye shall possess. Parashah Yahweh,
Parashah Yahweh.
Nashal Nashmai,
Nashal Nashami.
all Yahweh said,
All that Yahweh said,
we do here.
what we're doing here.
Now this is the commandment, the statutes and the ordinances which Yahweh your Elohim commanded to teach you, that ye might the Elohim and keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I command thee, and thou and thy son and thy son's son all the days of thy life, that thy days may be prolonged. Hear therefore, O Yashala, and observe to do it, that it may be well with thee, that ye may increase mightily, as Yahweh, the Elohim of thy fathers, hath promised thee, a land flowing with milk and honey.
Okay. You got any commentary on that? Any midrash on it? Any gets? Okay. Now notice that in verse 25 it says, your tents, Elohim come. Because in the Madbar wilderness, we not only dwelt in Sukkot or Sakwath, we also dwelt in tents, Ahalim. All right. So when we dwelled in the tents, we were in the tents usually at night sleeping, and then during the daytime when the sun came out, we were in each man was in his own sukkah or his own sakha to keep himself cool because the sun was coming down. So we had both in the wilderness. And that's something that we always want to understand. Understand that in the wilderness it wasn't just tent or a booth. We had both. Okay. Also, when he read in verse chapter 6, verse 1, he talks about Yahweh is going to give you this land to possess it. You see, the land of Israel right now was not given to people by Yahweh. It was given by the UN. And the people of Yahweh are not possessing that land, and they're not doing the commandments and enforcing the commandments. It's a democratic society. They're voting. They have, in the land, they have pigs, they have shrimp, they have lobster when you go to the southern part, in the Judean desert, in the towns further down south. They have a lot of unlawful. This is a land that has been supplanted from the children of Yasha'Allah and occupied by converts that are not really walking Torah, but are walking in the understanding of their own hearts. They're walking only in what the Talmud says. They're walking only what the Mishnah says. They're only walking in what they say is the oral. And if it violates the Torah, then that's fine for them. If it goes against the written, so there's several things that go against the written that they say are oral. And that these things are oral are valid. So the Most High hasn't given us that land as a possession yet. He will. But before he gives it to us, he's going to take us into the wilderness. Remember, we got to go into the wilderness first. That's what he said, not me. All right. Next reader. Chapter 6, verse 4 through 25.
Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4.
Now this is our greatest commandment. Okay, our greatest commandment. Go ahead.
Hear, O Yeshua, Yahweh our Elohim is one Yahweh. And thou shalt love Yahweh thy Elohim with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thy heart, and thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thine hand, and they shall be as frontlets between thine eyes. And thou shalt write them upon the posts of thy house and on thy gates. And it shall be, when Yahweh thy Elohim shall have brought thee into the land which he sware unto thy fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give thee great and goodly cities, which thou buildest not, and houses full of gold, and houses full of all good things, which thou fillest not, and wells dig, which thou diggest not, vineyards and olive trees, which thou plantest not, when thou shalt have eaten and be full. Then beware lest thou forget Yahweh, which brought thee forth out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage. Thou shalt fear Yahweh thy Elohim, and serve him, and shalt swear by his name. You shall not go after other gods, of the gods of the people which are round about you, for Yahweh thy Elohim is a jealous Elohim among you, lest the anger of Yahweh thy Elohim be kindled against thee, and destroy thee from off the face of the earth. You shall not tempt Yahweh your Elohim as you tempted him in Massah. You shall diligently keep the commandments of Yahweh your Elohim, and his testimonies and his statutes which he hath commanded thee, and thou shalt to go and possess the land which Yahweh sware unto thy fathers, to cast out all thine enemies from before thee, as Yahweh hath spoken. And when thy son asketh thee in time to come, saying, what mean the testimonies and the statutes and the judgments which Yahweh our Elohim hath commanded you? Then thou shalt say unto thy son, we were Pharaoh's bondmen in Egypt, and Yahweh brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand. And Yahweh showed signs and wonders, great and sore, upon Egypt, upon Pharaoh, and upon all his household before our eyes. And he brought us out from thence, that he might bring us in to give us the land which he sware unto our fathers. And Yahweh commanded us to do all these statutes, to fear Yahweh for our good always, that he might preserve us alive, as it is at this day. And it shall be our righteousness if we observe to do all these commandments before Yahweh our Elohim, as he hath commanded us. Kal Shemad Bar Yahweh, Na Yeshua Na Shemai.
Na Yeshua Na Shemai.
All Yahweh said,
All that Yahweh said,
what we doing here.
what we doing here.
Any commentary on that?
So Moshe told them to love Yahweh with all their heart, soul, and might, and the words that he's telling them, that they have to teach them to their children, and to talk about them with their children, and to put them around their house. And Yahweh, he's going to give them the land that you swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and it's going to be there's going to be houses there that you didn't build, and vineyards that you didn't plant, and olive trees that you didn't plant, and wells that were digged. And he's telling them to be careful so that they don't forget when Yahweh took them out of Egypt, and and fear Yahweh, and don't go after other gods or the gods of the other nations, or else Yahweh, he's going to destroy them from off the earth. And so to diligently keep his commandments, or else, well, if you do that, then everything's going to be good with you, and they'll be able to go and possess the land which Yahweh swore to their fathers.
So the greatest commandment that we read was not written by Yahweh. It was written by Moses. So you got a lot of brothers out here now saying, well, whatever Moses wrote is not valid, only what Yahweh wrote. When Moses writing through the spirit of Yahweh, or the spirit of Yahweh is speaking through Moses, Masha. And this is the greatest commandment that Moses is writing. He's writing the greatest commandment. I would never in your own mind think to even imagine something like that, would you? Well, this Moses talking, so we ain't got to do this. Yahweh said, listen to Moses. Did he not?
Okay.
Yahweh said, listen to Moses. Because we were scared to listen to Yahweh. Because his voice was too overpowering. And the way he moved the atmosphere and the environment was scary to us. It was scary, and we didn't want to follow that voice that way. It said, let Moses speak. Let Moses speak to us. We don't want really, no disrespect, but you scare us. That's what happened. That's what the people said. We ain't got to do what Moses said. You got to obey what Yah says. The Most High said. What do we say, man? You know what we said? This is what we said. This is Shamwath or Shemot, chapter 20, verse 19, verse 18, 19. And all the people saw the thunderings and the lightnings and the noise of the trumpet and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they removed and stood afar off. Isn't this what Moses is talking about? All right, let's see what will happen after that. And they said unto Moses, all of us, we said to Moses, speak thou with us, and we will hear. But let not Elohim speak with us, lest we die. So we said, you speak to us, because we're afraid. Right?
Okay.
If the Most High speaks to us, we're going to die. And now, when you go into Deuteronomy, chapter 5, verse 27, we see the same thing. Go thou near and hear all that Yahweh our God shall say. And speak thou unto us all that Yahweh Elohim shall speak unto thee, and we will hear and do. That's what you read already, right? And Yahweh heard the voice of your words when ye spake unto me.